everybody. Welcome along to Health Wealth again. We have another episode and another guest this week. I have my friend Shahid Ahmed with us. We're going to talk about his life, learn about him, and he has a very interesting and inspirational health story that we're also going to learn about. So, first off, Shahid, how are you doing? How have you been today?
It has been quite the day. Yeah. And absolutely end to end with meetings and video conferences and work. Yeah. And it started, when did it start? Actually started yesterday because I only had an hour and a half of sleep. So
wow.
Yes, it's been that kind of day.
Okay. Well done that you're still going.
Yeah, had to make it to this.
Yes, good. I appreciate it. Thank you. So I thought first we'd just talk a bit about you and your background. So your background's kind of in computer games, isn't it? Computer game development. How did you first get into that?
So this was 1982 when I got into it.
Oh wow.
Which is close to the beginning.
Yeah.
And I didn't like them at first, I have to say. I thought they were a bit boring because back then, you know, most of them were like black and white and business machines and nothing fancy at all. But then the Spectrum got announced and suddenly this thing that I thought was really boring, I thought, hold on a minute, this could mean arcade games in the home. And that was interesting to me because I loved the arcades at the time. So I begged and begged my mum. And even though I come from a poor background, my mum was on her own. She divorced my dad. We were living on a council estate surrounded by racist bullies. And so she's working every hour God sent. And we got, I'm trying to remember, 5p pocket money max a week.
Yeah.
A week, right? And so those are the days. So for her to splash out what would have been the equivalent of around $2,000 in today's money on this Atari, because in the end I went for the Atari, was just unbelievable. I mean, I can't understand what would make a parent do that. I mean, yeah, it's easy for me in my position now to buy my kids the things that I think they need. But when you're thinking about how you're going to make the rent and how you're going to buy the next meal and so on, and you're wearing hand-me-down clothes, to get an Atari computer, you know, it kind of gave me a massive edge over my environment. It was the biggest step up and I guess leg up I ever received. And so that was it. So I started from there and I just went nuts. I mean, it was 3 days, 3 nights, non-stop without sleep. So I'm kind of used to this life, you know? Yeah. So but I was young then. So 3 days, 3 nights was just about doable and then I'd collapse. But just learning. And eventually I started to make games and the first ones are rubbish, as you know. Everything that you do at the beginning, you think is really good and is worth something, but actually is rubbish. And then you develop, like any skill, you develop the discernment to understand what's good and what's not as you improve. And that's the whole Dunning-Kruger cycle, right? You start off really optimistic with no skill and you think you're that good. Then you develop and oh, hold on a minute, I've learned this much skill, but now your confidence in your skill level is rock bottom. And then eventually you're extremely skilled, which is where I got to, and your confidence is now about the middle, right? So you're not overshooting. You're not thinking you're way better than the rest of the world because you know now that this is not an easy thing. And so that was a process that took about a year and a half. And then I got to make a conversion of probably the biggest game in the UK at the time, which is called Jet Set Willy. I've written about this on Twitter in a thread called Code is Just, which talks about my entire story. It's massively viral. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of impressions and shared by some top people all over the world. So that talks about the first few years. So that was it. I started making games and I started blagging my way into bigger and bigger gigs. And that was the early 80s. A great time, really exciting time.
Yeah. I guess, like you said, you were in at kind of the start of that whole kind of genre taking off with computer games. Because I even remember, when I was a kid, like you say, playing the games at the time, you thought they were good. You look back now, and they were massive blocks for the graphics and whatever. And it's come such a long way since. So you've kind of been there on the entire journey through it. And do you do some you kind of coach other developers now? Do you?
That's right. Yeah. So programming and video games development has come an enormous way. I mean, not just a long way. I mean, if you put it in car terms, right? If a car had increased in power by the same proportion as computers have in the last 40 years, cars would be traveling at many times the speed of light, drinking less than micro pennies per light year, right? That's the kind of comparisons, not even an exaggeration. In fact, I might be downplaying the figures. I did the calculation once and it was astonishing. Because like back then, right, we had 16K and of memory. I had 16K in my Atari, and my Dell over there has got 16 gigs of memory. So think about that, right? From a K to a meg to a gig. So to a meg is 1,000, right? And then to a gig is another 1,000. So it's 1,000,000 times more memory. 1,000,000. Imagine a car going 200 million miles an hour, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's the progress. So
yeah.
So the video games reflect that. And now you can see you've got games in VR, and you got games that look almost photoreal with huge landscapes and detailed characters that are intelligent and do all kinds of things. And back then, as you say, the graphics were blocky and very simple, and they represented graphics. They weren't really graphics. You couldn't really call them graphics, right? They're like, oh, what do you mean a spaceship? All right, I'll suspend my disbelief. You don't have to suspend disbelief anymore. You're there.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, two things I do with youngsters. I teach them not just the ins and outs of video games development, how to manage a team, how to look after your health. That's really important. I teach that a fair bit as well. But also I try and get across the joy of this industry, because there's more and more evidence to show that games are good for you. Compelling medical scientific studies to show that games are of immense benefit, and sometimes show 100 times the efficacy of equivalent drugs. So imagine reducing the effects of stress, anxiety, and depression, right? A drug might have, I don't know, I'm not going to name any particularly because we don't want to get sued, right? But it might have, say, marginal efficacy, that it will improve, say, 10% at best of the people over the long term. But video games have been showing 50% efficacy and sometimes even higher. So there's a lot of research being done in that area. That's the field I'm kind of a lot more involved in. So I combine video games with wellness, which I'm guessing is going to be quite thematic for this esteemed podcast of yours.
Yeah, that's really interesting talking about that, because I guess just as kind of a general view, when people are talking about kind of mental wellness and stuff, the general advice probably would be, don't be playing video games and watching TV and all of this. Right. But do you think that maybe the benefit for video games is that with TV, you're kind of just watching it? With video games, do you think because you're doing stuff and it's making your brain work a bit more, do you think that maybe gives you a bit more benefit there?
Absolutely. And here's the thing. A video game that's well made is designed to engender the flow state, right? Which I'm sure you're very familiar with. So over the course of millions of interactions in a game has got to keep you challenged enough. It's called the challenge condition. Challenged enough that you don't get bored, but not too challenged that you get frustrated. It's got to keep you in this narrow band so you get better. Here's that graph again. I really should have a whiteboard here. I've got a whiteboard. Here we go.
Prepared.
Got a
whiteboard.
So let me draw you the famous gaming thing. So we're going to go this way. I hope it's not too inconvenient to see. And
that's fine. We can see it.
Good. On this axis, we've got difficulty. So let's just call that here. On this axis, we've got time. Can you see that all right? So you got to keep the difficulty across time going up steadily and keep the player in that tightly confined band.
Okay.
And if you do that, what are you doing? You're teaching people and you're keeping them in flow state. They're motivated because they're learning how to solve the problems in this game world. And guess what? That's what we do in life.
That's very true.
Give you an example, right? You start learning to walk as a child. And imagine your parent after 2 days goes, this ain't happening. This ain't happening. We got to take them to the doctor and get them some medication to make sure their legs are stabilized, God forbid, you know, some kind of cast, or give them a wheelchair. Would we give up after 2 days? But that seems to be what we're doing these days in terms of how we treat ourselves, right? The value of a video game is it teaches you that life is a series of increasing challenges. Like there's this prayer, right? Which is, I can't remember who said this, and I really should. If I'd had more than an hour and a half sleep, I would remember. But actually, it's not a prayer. I think Jim Rohn might have said this. Don't ask for, what was he said? Don't ask for more ease. So like when you've got problems, when you face problems, you really want to be asking for more strength. I'm paraphrasing him.
Yeah, no, I think I've heard that saying. Something like, don't pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to deal with the one you've got, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. There are many variations of it. Jim Rohn said something brilliant. And on 6 hours of sleep, I'd have it for you. But at the moment, the old CPU is a little bit slow on the uptake. So the point there is, life is best when you're in pursuit of something, when you're in pursuit of a goal and you think you might just about have the ability or the skill to get that. It's about the pursuit. It's never about the goal. It never is. Can I get this? Can I get there? You've got to push yourself hard enough that it's exciting and challenging, and you can't take it too easy. The same thing with going to the gym. So video games are exactly the same. Video games teach you these life lessons. And if they're designed well, in doing that, they do it in a safe environment so that you internalize this idea. Okay, so I got to learn this. Hey, guess what? I did that. I got to learn this. Oh, I was rubbish at that at the beginning, but I can do that now. In every challenge in life, video games has a model for it. And they're incredibly valuable for that reason. And they used to be dismissed and derided as a complete and utter waste of time. And frankly, if you're using video games to escape your life, then they are. That's different.
Yeah, that's true.
Use them as a tool, right? Think about it like this. I don't drink, and I don't encourage anyone to drink. But some people seem to be able to manage with, I know, a glass of wine every now and then. And that seems to be okay for them. But then on the other hand, you've got alcoholics. Do you say you completely, I probably would forbid alcohol being a Muslim. Let's pick a better example, shall we? The point being that anything in huge doses is going to be a problem. Water, I try and have 3 liters every day. Might be a bit on the high side, but I think it helps with fat burning. So I try and have 3 liters. Don't always make it, often 2.4, but 3 liters is my aim. But if I were to have 30 liters, I drop dead. Should we ban water? And it's the same with video games. If you have a problem in your life, video games are not the problem. You're using them as a crutch to escape the problems in your life, and you're sitting in your bedroom, whatever, playing them for 8, 10, 12 hours. That's not healthy, but it's not the video games that are making you unhealthy. You are unhealthy here. There is a problem in your life that you're trying to escape, and video games are a palliative. They make you feel better about your life. They make you feel in control again. How many things do that? And the thing about video games is I'd rather youngsters who had a really terrible life were playing video games, even for long periods of time, than resorting to drugs and crime and so on and other forms of escape.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I suppose, like you say, when video games an escape from issues in their life, the other options are, drink, drugs, and whatever. So video games are definitely a better choice than that.
Right. I'm not saying it's a good choice. What I'm saying is it's not as harmful as the other choices, and the other choices seem to get much less bad press than video games in that respect. And the video games extreme examples are massively overplayed. And yes, I know I'm in the industry, but you got to remember, I kind of internalized some of this stuff myself a couple of decades ago. And now I give talks about how it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah. And it's completely true what you're saying about learning to overcome stuff and take on challenges, because that is true. And that's what I found playing video games when I was younger. And I played, like, let's say a GTA or Call of Duty or whatever. When you had the missions to do, you were interested in it and you would play it. As soon as you complete all the missions and you had no objective, like you say, no kind of nothing to be fulfilled, you just lost interest. And like you say, that's kind of the same with life, that you need some kind of purpose and objective, or you just lose interest.
Absolutely. It's like the people who went to the moon, they got really depressed, because what do you do after you've been on the moon? Where else can you go, right? So the important thing is, when you've got some kind of goal, you already need to know what your next goal is going to be, because there is that period of adjustment where you don't feel the sweetness of the achievement of the goal. But you need to allow that. You need to allow that to sink in for a while, but then you need to go on the next journey and aim for the next thing, right?
That's true. It's about, you need to get your kind of your positive reinforcement and your fulfillment from the journey, not from the goal. Because like you say, whenever you achieve a goal, you suddenly realize it doesn't fulfill you like you thought it would, and you want more. So if you concentrate on the journey itself, then you're not going to feel let down when you finally get it. Same with, like, if your goal is a supercar for your entire life, that's all you want. If you get enough money to buy a supercar, I guarantee you won't feel that satisfied afterwards. It's about the goal to get you there. You got to enjoy your journey.
Right. And there's also that element of, with the goal, why is it that you want it? It's really important to know the why. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talk about goal setting and smart objectives, but nobody ever talks about the why. And the why, I think, is really critical. Why is it that I want this? I mean, right now, Ryan, I've got this picture of a Rolls Royce. It's the electric one, which some people might kind of go, what? But, I love the look of the thing, and that's what I aspire to. And the question for me is, why? Well, because the why is not the car itself. And it's not because it's electric. And it's not because it's the most outrageous bling gold. I'm going to have to send you a screenshot of this. It's not outrageous bling gold with these enormous cast alloys. It's not that. It's not even the price tag, which is what, 250, 300K. Okay, it's an outrageous car in every respect. But the reason I've got that there is because I came from dirt poverty, where I wore hand-me-down clothes. I had holes in my underpants and socks for years on end. We ate really badly, and I was a type 1 diabetic, so it was double jeopardy, right? In and out of hospital all the time. And my pocket money was 5p a week, and that Atari, like I said, was what my escape was. And for me, the Rolls Royce symbolizes the absolutely unattainable wealth that I saw in London around me as I was growing up. If someone had a roller when I was a kid in the 70s, they'd made it, right? Now, today it might be different. God knows how someone is able to afford a roller. Could be any number of reasons. Could have been a crypto investor and got lucky, right? That doesn't mean they built a character the way some of us do. So putting all that aside, for me, it's a symbol of, I want to transform my life from that poverty and that feeling. You feel like the poverty is in your cells, right? And I want to have this car because for me, it symbolizes the unattainable wealth. Like, I've had a Merc, I've had a Jag, really nice XK, and they were fine cars to go for. but a Rolls Royce, I think it's a Spectre. I mean, oh my God, just looks amazing. So for me, the why, I know exactly the why. And here's the thing, right? If I had the car, I'd be good. I wouldn't be going, it's not all that, because it wouldn't be about the car. It's not really about the car. It's about what it symbolizes. So if I got there, it'd be like, the steps I took, the journey I've been on to get here.
Yeah.
The other thing Rowan said about developing a wealth mindset is it's not about becoming a millionaire. It's about what type of person you've got to become a millionaire.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had just recently, I did a podcast with a guy called Michael Mojo. He's a mindset coach in Australia. And it was really interesting. He was talking about how they do a thing about getting your values set and looking at finding out what you value, because everyone subconsciously has things they value and give priority to in their life. Basically finding out what they are. And if you concentrate on them, then you will feel fulfilled. And, the other stuff that comes is just a part of it. So for you, you've kind of got what it represents is kind of the value to you that you're aiming for. And like you say, having the car is a bonus, but your actual value is what it represents. And that's the way to look at it rather than the material things.
Absolutely that. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I noticed obviously there you spoke a bit about when you was younger and you mentioned about being diabetic, which obviously that kind of brings us to the health side of your life. So if we kind of go back right the way to the start and just talk a bit about how you struggled with that when you were younger and how it was first kind of diagnosed and what you kind of went through at the very beginning.
So I nearly died of ketoacidosis. I was entering a coma and my mum took me to hospital after many weeks of not being diagnosed. I was losing a ton of weight. I was unable to keep any food down. I was urinating constantly, dehydrated beyond belief. It was a thirst that could not be slaked. And eventually I fell into a coma, got taken to hospital by ambulance, and I was diagnosed on the spot by an Australian doctor who smelt my breath, smelt the ketones, and said, your son's diabetic, to my mum. That was it. That was the diagnosis. And so I was put on drips and, given insulin, saline, and what have you. And that was December 1973, January 1974. So this December, I'll have been diabetic for 50 years, which is quite some going for a type 1. And then a couple of weeks after I was admitted into hospital, I had to learn how to give myself injections, insulin injections. And at that time, injections had needles the size of your arm. I mean, they were not the tiny microfine, greased, sterilized, friction-free needles of today. No.
And how old were you then?
7, 8.
That's a lot for a kid of that age.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And I was always out of control. We didn't really have the tools back then to measure your blood glucose at home. Now, I'm wearing a Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. And that tells me on my phone exactly, or on my watch, exactly what my blood sugar is at any given time. Strictly speaking, not the blood sugar, the interstitial fluid sugar, but it lags about 5 minutes behind the blood. But yeah, the only way you could have any idea of what was going on with the glucose in your blood was dipping a keto stick into your urine stream and then waiting a minute and then comparing it to a color on the bulk chart. Right? And if it was really faint blue, it was like you were hypo, but you had been hypo a day ago. Because think about it, all that's showing you is how much blood glucose has been excreted by the kidneys in excess. And if nothing's coming through, that's telling you what happened about a day ago. It was useless. I don't know why they even told us to do it. I think it was to give us some idea whether we were in ketoacidosis or not. They told us to look out for ketones. I couldn't be bothered, frankly. And that's why I was in and out of hospital. I mean, it's serious, it can kill you, right? But I didn't die, so that's all good. Yeah, I had various, diabetes out of control can give you serious complications. microvascular and macrovascular. And I've had the full house of the microvascular complications. So the neuropathy affecting the hands and the feet. I've had retinopathy. I've had most of my retinas lasered away. I've had 10,000 laser burns, which were in the days when lasers fired laser beams, I don't know, about the size of that thing, right? Nowadays you got tiny lasers you can't even see. So kidney issues as well, diabetic nephropathy. So all of the complications you get from out of control diabetes I've had. I had a couple of mini strokes. I had an subarachnoid hemorrhage. So, you know, lots of stuff. But that was a while ago now. And I've been in pretty robust health and good control of my diabetes for quite some time. And lots of things have changed, but the main thing was attitude, really.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about that. I think I find with people with any type of health condition, and not even necessarily health, anything else, people can't be helped until they want to help themselves. You can try and give them all the tools, give them whatever, until they want to help themselves, you can't really do anything. I just, before we kind of get onto what kind of changed and how you managed to get yourself sorted, in all the years where you had it and it was kind of worse, did you ever get much from the medical side and doctors and stuff? Did you get much decent advice from them? And kind of the thing I'm most interested in is, did they ever talk about diet and lifestyle with you?
No. They were useless. Absolutely useless. I mean, things changed a lot in the last 15 years. My medical team have been absolutely amazing over the last 15 years. And it's not just because the tech has got better. I think part of it is because my attitude has improved. But as a child, I think they should have treated me a lot better, given that I was a child. Even though I was an incredibly bright child, they should have credited me with that, and they should have tried to explain to me what's going on. Nobody ever told me what would happen if my blood sugar raged out of control. Nobody ever told me I could get kidney disease or that I could start to go blind. You know, I've lost a lot of sight as a result of this condition. Nobody ever told me that I would get neuropathy that would be so agonizing that I would get up out my bed in the middle of the night as a child and kick the metal frame of my bed repeatedly to try and stop the pain, because the pain of kicking some metal was a way to mask the pain of that peripheral neuropathy. Nobody told me any of this stuff. Nobody said you got to keep your blood sugar or even your sticks in this range. They said this is good, this is bad. So really poor labels. They told me how many carbohydrates I could eat in a day. So they said, okay, so we want to start you off on 150 grams of carbohydrates a day, and this is how much insulin you need to take. And I'd get hyperglycemic attack after hyperglycemic attack. Okay, up the carbs, and this would be months. Try 240 grams of carbs, and like all this time you're oscillating wildly. And then eventually I just gave up, stopped going to my clinics, and kept going in and out of hospital, but really abused the diabetes because I had no idea until the episode with the eye hospital, when they looked in the back of my eyes and said, you've got serious problems, you could go blind, we need to give you laser surgery. Then I freaked out. Then I started to pay attention. So what's caused this? I was 17 at the time. And he said, when you don't control your blood sugar, this is what happens. I said, why didn't no one ever told me? Why has no one ever told me this? 9 years I've been diabetic at this point. No one had ever told me. Can you imagine that? No. We're talking about the 70s. So, a lot has changed. Diabetes care has improved massively since then, particularly for type 1s. I'm not sure about type 2s, but I think there's a huge underdiagnosis problem as well with type 2, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like you say, it's improved, but I think there's still the big issue is like the knowledge and education. Like you say, people didn't even tell you the pros and cons and what will happen if this and what will happen if that. And there's just no education. There's people nowadays with diabetes who don't really understand the condition still. And that's kind of the first thing they should be doing, from my personal view, at least, tell them how it works and how they can understand so that they can control it themselves. But even with a lot of doctors, I think that what they're taught about diabetes is not even right. So it may not necessarily be that doctors are giving bad advice. Some of the stuff I don't believe that they're taught is even correct on it. So it's kind of a vicious circle of misinformation where people end up being hurt by it, which is the sad thing.
Yeah, there have been a lot of reports about doctors not being proactive on diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes. But I think there's also, here's the thing, right? I firmly believe you got to take personal responsibility for every situation in your life, right? I'm not going to blame those doctors. That's out of my hands now. I mean, my opinion is that they should have explained to me what diabetes could do. And maybe not terrified me, but told me that I had the chance of living a long, healthy life if I did this. And I had a good chance of living a horrible, miserable life if I did that. Just give me my choices. And then you could say, well, at least you told me. But I think now when we're talking about type 1 care, particularly where I am, because not everyone is the same, that my clinic, I'm at St. Mary's Hospital, has some of the best clinicians in the world in diabetes, some of the best diabetologists anywhere. Cannot praise them enough. And they have an absolutely encyclopedic grasp, not just of type 1 diabetes, but they've seen so many patients come in. It's a teaching hospital, so they run loads and loads of tests and experiments. So they've seen many different approaches to type 1 management, and they've seen what happens when things go wrong, and they've seen what happens when things go right. Thankfully for them, I'm one of their few success stories. So they're delighted with me. I remember once going and seeing my consultant, who's now the National Clinical Director of Diabetes for the whole of the UK. I went and saw him, and he had a graph up on a monitor. And guess what the graph looked like? It looked like that. Except he said, this is your HbA1c, and it's going down. It's been going down for the last 2 years. And HbA1c, for those who don't know, is your glycosylated hemoglobin levels. And it measures the amount of glucose saturation over about 12 weeks in your hemoglobin. And it's a quite reliable indicator of how many spikes you've had. And then the other really useful tool that we've got now is, I'm looking for my phone. I haven't got a clue where it's gone. I hope it doesn't get off. But yeah, that's a good thing I don't know where my phone is, right? So that thing now has the Dexcom app, which I was talking about, and some software called Clarity, which records your glucose levels from the last 90 days and shows you how much time you were in range as a percentage, which is a brilliant metric. And you can almost gamify it. Like today, I was 80% in range today. 90% in range. I remember once I got 2 days, 100% in range. Like, yes, what's diabetes? Do I even have it? So the tools, this is the thing, the tools have got better, but you've got to be responsible enough to use these tools, to understand these tools, to take control of your own condition and to aggressively manage it. And if you've got a team that's not as good as mine, let's face it, a lot of people won't have, right? Because a lot of the knowledge out there is not at the highest level. Let's put it that way. I don't want to be too dismissive. But if you're in that situation, then you owe it to yourself to teach yourself everything you can and to be quite firm with your team in telling them how you propose to approach it. And if they have a good and valid counter argument, they should explain it in terms that you understand. They owe you that, right? Because you're the one who's got to live with the condition.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you said, it can be sometimes down to the luck of the draw. With the NHS, you could get a really good doctor, you could get a really bad doctor. You don't really have much of a choice, do you? Unless you're private. And I like what you said about personal responsibility. That's another thing we're really big on. Just whatever it is, you accept responsibility of it, and you can fix the problem. And a lot of people need to take responsibility, and especially with type 2, because obviously type 1 is a genetic thing. Type 2 is something that you've given yourself in the first place. So, you know, you really need to take personal responsibility for fixing that, I think. And obviously that one is easier to fix than type 1 as well, which is more difficult. So was it like,
as far as I'm aware, no one has ever reversed type 1, as far as I'm aware. I think there might have been one or two examples where they were given transplant of the islets of Langerhans cells into the hepatic portal vein, I think, along the liver, and then they migrate to either the liver or the pancreas. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, pancreas, I think it is, yeah.
No, it wasn't necessarily the pancreas, because they didn't inject it into the pancreas. So even though they were islets of Langerhans, they injected them to the portal vein. I need to check that. And you might well be right, but yeah, it was an unusual procedure. But then the problem with that, Ryan, as you know, is you've got to take the immunosuppressants for the rest of your life. And who wants to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, type 2 can be treated. I've helped people put their type 2 into remission, and it doesn't take much.
No.
It's amazing how little it takes.
Yeah, I completely agree. With you, was it kind of, did you have kind of like a one-off thing, like a, whatever they'd say, a Damascus Road experience, or was it like a gradual thing? Did you just one day be like, right, I need to change it, I need to sort it out and start doing it, or did it take a bit longer to kind of reach that point?
There were two points. The first, when I was, because even when I was supposedly going blind, I just went along with it, took the laser surgery, carry on doing what I was doing, right? I'm 17, starting to make video games, starting to make a name for myself. But then the next time was 97, when they said I've got kidney disease. And kidney disease, or diabetic nephropathy, is usually a life sentence. And I looked at the stats, and it showed that once you show signs of diabetic nephropathy, the prognosis is you're going to live 5 to 7 years. This is back in 97. Okay, what can I do? So I did all the research I possibly could to try and change my diet. I went completely vegetarian, because obviously I didn't want to stress my my kidneys with animal protein. And then I went vegan, and then I had lots of tofu, because tofu was, at that time, had been discovered to be protective, nephroprotective, or whatever it is. I think there's another term for it. But then I was able to knock that on the head, because eventually they came up with this miracle drug called irbesartan. Before that, it was ramipril, and then irbesartan. They're from a class of drugs called ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme 1. Excuse me. So the first set I took was ACE1 inhibitors, ramipril, and the cough was a giveaway. The reason I had to stop taking them, because some people develop a cough, dry cough, and taking those. So my body must have known I was going to talk about that. And then I got switched to the much more powerful and advanced ACE2 inhibitors. So that's when I got switched to irbesartan. And that's been brilliant. And thankfully I can eat meat again. Not that I've got anything against vegans or vegetarians, but just kidding. but I do like me piece of chicken and steak, you know. So that those ACE2 inhibitors work to treat, and they've kept my kidneys in a good place for quite some time. That was the first real situation where I took control, but I think the drugs really helped. The second situation was the one where I really turned things around, and that's when I got demoted at work. And it was the most brutal, unfair, ruthless, callous thing that had been done to me, because it's totally and utterly undeserved. But that was around 2010, 2011. And you know what I decided to do? I sat down at my desk on the floor, right? On the floor with my headphones on, listening to the Jam's Smithers Jones, which I don't know if you know it or not. It's a really old song, but it's about a guy called Smithers Jones goes to work, thinks he's going to get a promotion, but actually gets a boot, right? So that on loop in my headphones, sitting on the floor, tidying my headphones. And this is a PlayStation, you know, working at PlayStation at the time. I didn't care. I didn't care. I just sat there for 2 days, organizing my drawers. He knew what he'd done. And I was really upset. And then eventually I took a couple of days off. Then I started to sort my head out. I asked myself, the most important question anybody who thinks life is going against them should ask themselves. That question was, what if it's me? What if I'm the problem? What if it's my attitude? What if they're right? What would that look like? And what could I do about it? And then I realized I'd read a book on positive psychology about 10, 15 years beforehand. Don't even remember which one it was now. But that kind of gave me a temporary boost. And then I forgot all about it because I was in a god-awful marriage at the time. And that kind of takes your attention away from anything positive that might be happening anywhere else in your life. And that's an excuse, you see. That's an excuse. I could have kept that up, but I allowed myself to be weighed down by the pressure of that. I didn't have the tools or the mindset. You really need a certain type of mind, right, in order to stay focused on what really matters. So this time I thought, okay, let's pick something up. And have I got it on my bookshelf? Not in sight. I should always have a copy of it lying around. I bought like 5 or 6 copies and I gave copies to people. Yeah, I do. I'll show you. In fact, it's the very first book. Brian Tracy's Maximum Achievement.
Okay.
So I read it on the bus going into work. And guess what Tracy says that resonated with me immediately in the first few pages? The first thing you've got to do is to take full and complete responsibility for everything that happens to you. And that doesn't mean accepting the blame. It doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means, okay, it's happened. Now, what do I do? What am I going to do about it? And it puts you, and here's the thing, by accepting responsibility, it finally puts you in a place of agency and power. And that's when you start to get results. And I'm telling you, Ryan, my life started to skyrocket from that point on. Skyrocket. I kid you not. I mean, my first 6 years at PlayStation were an absolute disaster. Why? Am I allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So why were my first 6 years rubbish? Because I was the asshole. And my last 4 years, my trajectory was, guess what? Like this. Right? Vertical. Multiple promotions, multiple pay rises. I'm global in the games industry. I'm globally famous, a recognized face of PlayStation. Bosses telling me that I'm destined for, all of that stuff. Things were going amazingly brilliant. And why? Because I decided I was the one who had to accept responsibility. I was the one who had to seize control. Didn't matter what they did. Now it was up to me to react, to respond.
Yeah, I agree completely. And that's a really important point that you just made there, that accepting personal responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. Because sometimes people can think that that's the same thing, that like, oh, well, it's my fault, I did it. But like you say, it's not blaming yourself, beating yourself up. It's just saying, like you say, you put yourself in a position of power where like this has happened. I'm the one who can fix it. What am I going to do? And you just got to frame it correctly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that is awesome. What kind of things did you, obviously the drugs helped you a lot that you started getting, but what did you make kind of big changes in your diet and your lifestyle that also helped with it?
First time round, not so much. Second time round, completely revolutionized. So when I was serious, so this is a point at which I picked up Brian's book. Brian, we're on first name terms. Picked up his book. That's when things really changed for me. And that's when I made I'll tell you what, I'm glad that this is about health, first and foremost, this podcast, because for me, that was the basis on which I built my success. I knew that because I was coming in late because I was unwell, I had a reputation for being sick. And I was. And it affected me physiologically, hormonally. My mood was all over the place. I was, as I said, an arsehole, absolute grade A arsehole, right? And I knew it. When I accepted responsibility and started reading this, I knew it. I knew that that's what I'd become and allowed myself to be. And I thought, you know what? I can change that. I can change that. I'm going to smile now. This is how I'm going to respond. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to bound in the office, dressed in a suit, bursting with energy. My good friend and right-hand man at PlayStation, Lorenzo, he thought I'd lost it because he just joined the company and he'd seen this miserable git dressed in jeans and t-shirt over his fat gut. And one day, you know, he's slouching and not really offering him much. And then someday, the same guy walks in wearing a sharp suit, well-groomed, bounding in with energy. And how did I get that energy? Have a guess. I completely disregarded all the advice that had ever been given by the mainstream about diet.
Yeah.
I started eating nothing, and it was the best thing I could ever do. I had no breakfast. I'd have a black coffee, sometimes the coffee with some cream because no carbs in that. I would not have a lunch. People thought I was nuts. They said, you'll get unwell. I said, I've never felt so well. What's wrong with you? Can you not see? Hello? Look, this same person a year ago was sleeping under the desk. I kid you not. I slept under the desk at lunchtime because I didn't have the energy to get through the day. Now here I am with more energy than you lot who are 20 years my junior. But why are you saying this is no good for me? And then I'd have a really light dinner, again, 0 to low carb. And guess what? Lost 20 kgs in a year. 20 kgs in a year. That was back in 2011, that sort of time.
Yeah.
Started playing table tennis. Started off not being able to pick up the ball. I used to play against one of the security guys, lovely fella. He used to beat everyone. Absolutely smashed them all over the table. He was so kind to me that I wanted to start playing. I was too fat and out of shape and my knees in too much pain to bend down to pick the ping pong balls up off the floor. And he'd get them for me. And he's this huge guy, you know. And so he was smashing, he's taking it easy on me. He's still smashing me all over the place. But from that point to a year later, I was winning against him. Because I'd lost 20 kilos and I got seriously good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's kind of, you've kind of summed up the majority of what our message is that the problems we have in the world with health is mainly down to the fact that the mainstream information on diet nutrition is just completely wrong. And if you do pretty much the opposite, like you said, of what they say, you're going to actually be in good health. And like you say, I find the same with people who are really short. I eat mostly once a day. Sometimes I'll eat more, but you know, you talk to people about it and they think it's crazy. But I mean, if you go back a couple 100 years, we didn't, 3 meals a day wasn't even a thing back then. Even that's kind of recent.
Yeah.
In humans. So people are just kind of so conditioned to the way things are that anything different, they just think, well, that can't be good. But like you say, my favorite type of evidence, I always talk about this, my favorite type of evidence is anecdotal evidence. Like, I don't care about scientific research and studies because they're all paid for or they're just questionnaires, they're not reliable. Someone like you, what you're doing is making you 10 times or even 20 times better than you felt before. So clearly that works. That's all the evidence you need.
The thing is, when you're talking about fixing yourself, to use clinical terminology, you only need an N of 1, and that one is you, right? That's all that matters. Does it work for you? Keep doing it.
Yeah, that is true. That is completely true. Did you get any kind of pushback from your doctors when you started doing that, or were they quite supportive?
I didn't tell them.
Oh, did you know?
What was the point? What was the point? Yeah. I rocked up a year later. They said, how have you done this? They were astonished at what I'd achieved. So how have you done? I dropped my blood pressure, dropped my cholesterol, triglycerides, everything. All my readings were better. HbA1c was improving. How are you doing this? I said, I'll tell you, it's a really old secret. It's called starving. Our body's designed to do it when we're fat. And that's what I was. So I starved myself and it works. Who knew? Who knew? This is what we're designed to do.
Yeah.
These fat stores are meant to get us through difficult times. So it's time to put myself deliberately through difficult times. And guess what? It felt great. It didn't feel difficult at first. Yeah, of course. Not getting that muffin and latte at 11 o'clock in the morning hurt. But you adapt very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because I've heard lots of people who have taken it upon themselves and have managed to get amazing results with their type 1 diabetes. And a lot of them, when they've gone to the doctors, either the doctors not even been interested to ask them how they did it, which I mean, they should be interested in how. And a lot of people have had pushback from the doctor saying, well, you don't want to keep that up because of whatever. But it's just kind of, they're going by what's ingrained into them. Like they've been taught.
Catch on.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't do that because they might catch on and we might have to prescribe it.
Don't want to lose their customers, do they?
No, to be fair, I've had amazing support from my team. They've been absolutely brilliant. They wanted to know exactly what I've done and they've made detailed notes on it. And they can, they share it, share the details with other people. They're the ones who helped me get onto an insulin pump. I mean, the NHS pays for my insulin pump and my Dexcom. So, and I've had access to some of the best people in that team. People advise on how to handle injuries specifically related to diabetes and dietitians and so on. But dietitians, it's a one-way conversation, right?
Yeah.
they can tell you so much because there's a very narrow band of stuff that they actually know for sure. And they can say that in general, calories in, if they exceed calories out, you will put on weight. And that is true in general. There are always exceptions, of course. And I'm not saying if you keep on eating more and more and more, you're going to somehow magically get thinner. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying there's always variations in what's going on hormonally, physiologically in the body, that including, for example, you could be dropping your calories a lot, but if you've got tons of cortisol, you're not sleeping and you're not having enough water, and that fat is going to have a hard time shifting, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're having a bunch of sugar. So there are a lot of variables, but the point is they can only be very narrow in their prescriptions to you. And so what you tell them is interesting, but they can't use it, because how can they prescribe what I did for myself? How can they say to their other patients, I've got a patient, I'll tell you what he did. He starved all day long and he had a tiny meal of 800, 900 calories at the end of the day. No one's going to do that.
Yeah.
Their dilemma. They have a dilemma as well, right?
Yeah. It's, and as I say, health and nutrition, it is personal. It's a personal journey. Even what worked exactly for you may not work as well for someone else. They may need to do it slightly different. So yeah, and in any kind of industry, big change like that is always very difficult. I imagine it would be same in maybe the computer game industry as well. If someone come up with a way to do something completely different, even if it seemed better, I imagine it would take quite a lot of pushing to actually get it changed. People want to stick to the ways they know. Absolutely. And the old ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Innovation is always resisted.
Yeah.
Always. Innovators are resisted. The greatest innovators in history often treated like criminals and thrown into prison.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Change is always fought against. People find change uncomfortable. Yeah. Which and being uncomfortable is really something that we should be doing regularly to push ourselves to grow.
That's the essence of it. That's the essence. You've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to get out of your comfort zone.
I agree completely. And with you mentioned calories before, and one of the other things with calories is the type of food you're eating has a huge difference too. So when you were eating like that with those meals, what kind of food would you actually eat for your meals?
It was mostly proteins and fats.
Yeah, good.
Because for carbs, I'd need to take insulin.
Yeah, of course.
Which is going to help you store fat, right? So it stands to reason, if you want to keep your blood sugar level and feel good, and you want to support your muscles, and you need the fat, because otherwise your brain doesn't function properly and your mood gets wrecked. But it's funny how quickly, once you've adapted to being in ketosis, even mild ketosis, how good you feel, how sharp you feel. And people don't talk about that. Try feeling sharp on carbs. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Carbs are the enemy. I eat pretty much carnivore, so I don't eat carbs either, really, or plants or anything. And a few people I know, I was speaking to a guy recently who he's not on carnivore at the moment. He did it and he just did it for mental clarity, and he said it was amazing. Like, people have different reasons for doing things like that. And I think until you've done something like that, I don't think you even understand how much better you can feel on it, because people are just used to the way they feel.
Yeah.
And it's a huge difference. It's beneficial. I mean, you can't say one thing will work for absolutely everybody, but to be honest, that kind of diet as a base, I think, would work for everyone. And then some people may need to have other nuances around it and certain things to make it work. But it's a super powerful tool that people can use. Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you all evening when you've had an hour and a half sleep. So,
but do I look like I've had an hour and a half sleep? Age 57, type 1 diabetic.
You don't. You look awake and you look alert.
Guess what I've had to eat?
Nothing
chicken.
So far. Oh, okay, just chicken. Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's I would encourage everyone to at least try eating that way and see how you feel, because fasting is so beneficial to the human body. And like you say, hundreds and thousands of years ago, we would have been fasted for quite large portions of time, and then just that, when we had the opportunity, our bodies are built for it. So it's it works perfectly for us.
Yeah, there's a reason for us to get sharper, right? When we're fasted, it helps us
exactly
find the prey.
Yeah, exactly. Need to get that hunt.
Yeah. And it's the same in working life. If you want to be the one ahead of everyone else, if you want to compete in today's ultra competitive workplace environment, you'd better be sharp. You better bring your best tools to the game. You might as well stay in bed.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. To be optimal in all areas of your life, you've got to start with your diet and your health, and then you can kind of extrapolate it out to other areas.
Absolutely.
But it starts from that. Just before we go, just out of interest, if you don't mind sharing, what kind of was your A1C? Because I know that's a measure that people kind of use, and everyone who's diabetic understands. What kind of was it when it was bad, and what have you got it down to now?
Right. So when it was bad, it was like 10.5, 11%, which is horrific.
Yeah.
And I recently reached, I think it was a 6.4, which is better than what they told you to achieve. They're hoping that if you do really well, you can get to 6.5%. There was some clinical studies done that showed that diabetics who achieve 6.5% HbA1c tend to have massively improved outcomes compared to those who are significantly worse. And the thing is, every small improvement makes a huge difference. And what I'm told by my team is you don't need to go too much below that in order to continue deriving benefits, because the benefits fall off the more you go below 6.5 is the sweet spot. So to hit I think it was 6.4, 6.3, whatever it was my best ever. And it's been improving all the time. And as I learn more and more about how to manage the condition and manage my weight and manage myself, things seem to keep improving. So that's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My friends keep telling me I'm aging in reverse, so it must be true.
Yeah. I mean, I first met you a year ago, and you had been kind of improving yourself quite a while then. But even from then to now, you look almost like a new man, and you definitely look younger than you looked when I first met you a year ago. So what you're doing is clearly working.
Yeah, good lighting as well.
It works wonders. It works wonders. And the last thing is, have you also managed to reduce kind of the overall medication that you're on too? Because that's something else that people kind of aim for.
Yes, there was one point I was having to take amlodipine for blood pressure, and I was able to drop that. That happened quite some time ago. But other than that, no, it's been kind of fairly constant since 97, really. Not an awful lot of change. The most important medication I've dropped is my insulin, because that's the stuff we can't live without. But too much insulin is one of the worst things for your health, right? So that's halved. My insulin average dose per day has halved compared to when things were really bad, which is brilliant.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great improvement. And did you back then, would you have to also take like top-ups and stuff during the day? Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. And I take it you don't really need to do that now.
No, I've got this amazing pump. It's a semi-hybrid closed loop, which means it hooks up to my Dexcom and it adjusts the dose in real time according to what the sensor's telling it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it'll shut off when it thinks you can have a hypo. It'll start giving you a bit more insulin as it senses you're going high. So in terms of your physiology and your hormones and how they affect your mental performance, keeping within that narrow band is really important. A narrow band of blood sugars, that is. So the pump helps greatly in that regard.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. It's an awesome story you have, because I feel it's very relatable to a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are probably in the situation where you were struggling, and you're the living proof that you can turn it around, and you know how to turn it around. And I think giving people hope is one of the most important things you can give to people when they're in a situation like that. So I think it's a great story to share. Especially thank you for coming on an hour and a half sleep, which I really appreciate. Some people might have cancelled working off that. So I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed yourself too.
Absolutely.
And I'm yes, good to see you. I'm sure we will see each other again soon as well and catch up.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure. Take care, Ryan.
All right, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, or you'd like to appear on it, then please contact us at hwpoduk@gmail.com, on our website, which is healthwealthuk.com, or on any of our social medias, which are at hwpoduk. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family, and we will see you next week.